Surprise and happy birthday to me for all of you. It's the ebook you've been waiting for, so let's get into it. Conjugate Kaiju. This is an off-season mass gaining program intended for the strongman athlete. This is, to date, probably the toughest program I've ever put out, and that is by design. For a lot of folks, when they start bulking, is what happens is their inner beast winds up more Cookie Monster as opposed to Kaiju, and we want to avoid that problem. My philosophy when it comes to approaching a sensible bulk is one, you should probably take it a little slower than your dreamer bulk, and I'll talk about that later. But the other side of it is you want to train so hard with enough intensity and volume that you actually need to eat enough to support your training. Your nutrition is downstream from your training, so that's something to keep in mind with the philosophy of the training program. As this is designed for a strongman athlete moving up a weight class, you will need access to a strongman log because one of the big parts of the program is the Viper press progression. There's also in place a 20 rep squat program as well as a very special progression for the deadlift. In addition to some density work, we're doing a lot of volume in this work, and then some extra upper back and arm volume. The reason why, in my observation, it's been that an athlete who is at the top of their current weight class will often have already a competitive deadlift when they move up, but it's the press that's going to be the limiting factor. That said, even if you're not a strongman athlete, but you do like training in that style, this would be a really fun program to run. But don't try to run it in a calorie deficit, please. The program itself is a fairly typical 4-day split. You have 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days. You're going to go upper developmental, lower intensive, upper intensive, and lower developmental. The intensive days are my analog for max effort days in a traditional conjugate template, and then the developmental days replace the dynamic effort days, as we're not looking for speed work in this program since we have some other priorities. As always, you can rearrange the days as you will, but as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to lift more than 2 days in a row, and you don't want to take more than 2 days in a row off. If you've been on the channel for any amount of time, you'll know when it comes to my programs. As far as the accessory work goes, I give you some options as far as variations as well as progression schemes you want to use. You can almost think of it more like a template. Whereas for your 20 rep squat, your Viper press, and your deadlift, I do have a prescribed progression scheme I want you to use. With respect to your upper intensive press, I do lay out a suggested 9-week wave, but then there's also ways and instructions for you to do 3-week waves if you'd like. Regardless of which variations and progressions you choose, if you're ever confused on that, go with the suggested outlines. In general, you can't go wrong picking from the menus that I placed in this program. Your overall effort and focus is going to matter far more than if you chose rest, pause, or myo-mash for your tricep press downs. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence and read out the entire page to you. You can see what the upper developmental day looks like. You're going to have your Viper press, a horizontal press of choice, dips, and then after that some isolation work. And again, suggested progressions and variations are available in the columns. Screenshot this, or if you're really smart, just head down to the description box and hit the link to grab a copy of the program. Now, as far as the Viper press progression goes, I strongly encourage you start at 85 to 90% of your best log clean and push press, whereas if you are someone who tends to push jerk the log, you might start closer to 75 to 80%. Don't try to be a hero here, because if you look at those weeks, it is a lot of volume, and if you haven't been doing Viper presses consistently, you're going to get gassed out really quickly. Again, just screenshot this for your convenience. Worth noting too, in week 5 you have your choice. You can either do 2 sets of 8 and then 2 sets of 6, or 4 sets of 7 if you're kind of a weirdo. Next up will be your lower intensive day, and this is where you're going to train your deadlift. We're going to have a very specific progression for that. After that, you'll do a row of your choosing, a vertical pull of your choosing, some shrugs, and then ideally face pulls or just some general upper back / rear delt work. Now with your deadlift progression, what you want to do is scale everything off 85 to 90% of a recent 1 rep max on your standard competition deadlift, done raw, so no suit. Across the weeks, what you're going to do is you're going to be working up. You'll have a starting intensity, and then you want to try and have it so your last set is a near max effort. In general, you should be aiming to add weight every set, but I'd rather you repeat a set than take a weight jump and miss reps. Good rule of thumb is if you can't add 10 pounds, don't go heavier. So here is that 9-week progression now. How it'll work is for the first 3 weeks, you're going to be doing an axle block pull. Probably think about a 3-inch block so the axle is mid-shin. And again, across the sets, you're working up from that starting intensity so the last set is a near max effort. Then for the next 3 weeks, you're going to be pulling on an axle from the floor. And then the final 3 weeks, your competition deadlift. Again, do all of this raw, no suit. Because you're getting heavier too, your suit might not fit correctly, but hopefully not. Next up is your upper intensive day. So you're going to have your max effort pressing wave, then a second supplemental press. And then after that, it's just going to be a whole bunch of arm work. And the reason we're doing it this way is this is your third day of the training week. So you've had 2 very demanding training days and then maybe a day off. This is just a fatigue management strategy. And like I talked about earlier, because you are moving up a weight class, we want to make sure those arms are nice and strong, and big arms just look great when you're pulling a big deadlift anyhow. Now, as far as the pressing progression goes, it is going to be 3 different presses each run for 3 weeks. And the idea here is you're just ramping up week in, week out. And week 1, it's 4 sets of 8. Set 4 should be a near 1 rep max. Week 2, it's going to be 5 sets of 6, with set 5 being a near 6 rep max. If you come up a rep or 2 shy, it's not a big deal. But again, we're focusing on building mass. For the first 3 weeks, we're doing a seated behind the neck press. Then we're going to be moving to a 60-degree log dead press, so the log starts dead on the pins. And then we move to a strict standing log press after that. This will be an excellent pressing wave for helping build upper body size and strength. And strict pressing the log in general is a really good determinant of your overall upper body strength. Now, with respect to the upper intensive press waves, I do have a suggested one for it. But in general, you just want to think 3-week waves. The idea being you're working up across those 3 weeks and then you rotate out the press variation. Here are some suggested variations you could consider, such as going from a Z press to a seated press to a standing press of your choosing, or you could go from an incline press to a standing press to a push press, or if you're more of the bench type, close grip bench to a standard bench to a floor press. And then for our last training day of the week, this is going to be our lower developmental day. This is going to be our 20 rep squat day, but we start the day with some hamstring curls specifically to help with knee stability, something I stole from the late great John Meadows. And then after your squat, vertical pull of choice, then a row, reverse sled drag or something similar, and then some ab work. Very simple day overall, and especially after the 20 rep squats, we don't want to get too crazy or too fancy with our assistance and accessory work because you're going to be pretty tired. So as far as the squat program goes, what we're going to do is we're going to aim to take 80% of a current or recent 1 rep max out for a set of 20. For your first 3 weeks, you'll hit a heavy single, and then you're going to do some density work, just getting in as many sets as you can in the allotted time frame. Then after that, we move to a more traditional approach where you're going to have a top set and then additional volumizing sets thereafter. And then the final 3 weeks, we peak you to get that big set. And again, remember, all these percentages use 80% of a true 1 rep max. Now, as far as the accessory progressions go, just go ahead and screenshot this. You've got plenty of options available to you. And here's a couple more. As I talked about earlier, Conjugate Kaiju is all about doing so much work in terms of volume and intensity that you need to eat to support recovery and long-term growth. One of the big things is we don't want you to get sloppy with your bulk, so we're going to start a little more conservative. For setting your calories, we want to go about 15 times your body weight in calories, and then from there, carbs should make up about half of your calories, protein making up roughly 30%, and fats making up 20%. So if you're currently 225 pounds, we want you eating about 253 grams of protein, about 422 grams of carbs, 75 grams of fat, and a total of 3,375 calories. You should be aiming to gain about half a pound to 1.5 pounds per week. In general, you'll want to monkey with this figure every couple weeks. If you're gaining more than 1.5 pounds per week, the odds are very good you're just packing on excess fat, and long term that means it's going to make for a more miserable cut. So just something to keep in mind. So here are a few questions that I anticipate I might be getting regarding this program. First and foremost, can you run this in a deficit? Can you? Yes, but should you? Absolutely not. If you were to try and run this in a deficit, you should probably be dropping a set or 2 off of everything. Truth be told, I think you should be checking out my programs West Side for Chubby Bastards, and West Side for Chubby Bastards 2 is also going to be dropping soon. Now, as far as the deadlift progression goes here, the reason what I have found is as athletes gain weight, their positioning changes. So by starting with a block pull, what that allows us to do is it helps you kind of get used to your new body shape, especially in those first couple of weeks. You're probably going to be slightly bloated due to all the extra carb intake. So this is a way of also staying ahead of the game mentally, because that bloat, in turn, it would probably screw you up if you tried to do this program with a deficit deadlift. But by starting with the block, you can slowly titrate and build into the position. And by pulling with an axle, you really get better at using your mass to help you pry the weight off the floor, since the axle doesn't have any give. Now, the reason I suggest against the low bar squat is I just find the elbow, shoulder discomfort, as well as the low back strain just isn't worth it. And especially if we're doing a 20 rep program, it's not my suggestion. If you want to do it though, be my guest. I always advocate for controlled deadlift eccentrics because I think it helps you learn how to cycle reps better, dials in your hip height, and it gives the glutes and hamstrings a little more time under tension. If you can't do behind the neck press, just do it from the front. I really do love the BTN press. Ever since I've added it in, my shoulders are actually a lot happier, a lot healthier. And this is speaking as someone who has had shoulder history in the past, but I am definitely not a doctor. And then, why the Viper press? Isn't it cardio? You're absolutely right, it is. But it's strongman cardio. And again, we don't want your conditioning falling by the wayside as you go up in weight. The last thing you want to do is gain a ton of weight. You're in your new weight class, and your strength is maybe on par with everyone else, but now your conditioning is shot, so you're not doing any better. You have neglected a big part of being an athlete. Because part of being an athlete isn't just strength. There's elements of athleticism, conditioning, and overall fitness. So that wraps up the program. As I said, down in the description box below, just hit the link and you can get your own copy of this program 100% free. It's delivered via PDF. If you wind up running it, I'd love to hear your experience, answer any questions along the way. Thank you all so much. Again, happy birthday to me, and this is all for you. I appreciate you folks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.